Hi, happy 2025. It's Phil Stacy with the Salem News Sports Department, joined as always by Assistant Sports Editor Matt Williams and Gloucester Times Sports Editor Nick Chinino. We are here for our Bandied About North Shore Sports Podcast. Gentlemen, how are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Any resolutions you boys have for this year that you'd want to share or that you've started or whatever? Willie, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, more of a one day at a time guy. I don't know. Get back to me in, April, May, June, I guess.
Okay. All right. Still putting in the
Um,
road work when you can and all. I know that, so that's good.
yeah, I usually don't, but this year, I was talking to the future wife there, Becca, and she said should come up with something. So I'm trying to do a little less scrolling on the Twitter feed late night before bed. It's unnecessary. Again, I think I can. Kind of use the excuse that a lot of that is for work, getting my sports info on the X feed there. But yeah, I should cut back a little bit on that. But other than that, I think life's pretty good. Feel good about things. So
That's good. That's good.
yeah.
I am trying to make it a goal to read 40 books this year, which is not always easy. I think the most I've done since I started keeping track was like 36, 37 or so. But um, my wife,
Pretty good.
she reads like a maniac. She's a much faster reader than I am. She can really put in the time, but not that it's a competition by any stretch. I just would like to be able to say I've read 40 in a year. So I got one down, started number two today. So we'll see how it goes, but not always the easiest thing to do. These aren't short books that I read. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I remember correctly, you're not a, big audiobook guy, right? More
I tend to listen more to music. I listen to a ton of music, whether I'm home or in the car or whatever. So yeah, I mean something's gonna give. I don't really use Kindle. I had one way back when. I didn't use it all that much. I just like the regular, reading the book kind of thing. So
yeah, yeah.
get a lot of it done during the summer when you get a little more time off or whatever, so you can
You
plow through
buy them or go to the library more often?
library.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like literally one of the last things in life you can do that's free and is worthwhile.
it's true.
And again, the library is literally right down the street from my house.
Yeah,
So I use it quite a bit. Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into this week's podcast. Willie, you are steering the SS Minnow here. So why don't you take us in whatever direction it's not going to crash us on a 3 hour tour?
Mean, we'll go start out with the boys hockey. Let's try to stay on time, not go too much. Maybe every third line winger. We don't need to know, but let's start. Maybe up north there. Nick, Gloucester's been up and down, right? They started out, I think, 4-1-1, 3-1-1. Have kind of lost three in a row, and now face a pretty big game this weekend against Marblehead. Geez, I mean, I know they're the division defending division three state champions and everything, but it feels like every time I turn around, there's like a big game involving Marblehead, whether it was, a litmus test for the Peabody Co-op last weekend or, whenever they have their big showdown with Winthrop and the Danvers games, the Masconomic games, but obviously for Cape Ann purposes, this Gloucester game, certainly against Marblehead, I think is very interesting and a good chance for Gloucester to get back to its winning ways. I mean, what have you been seeing from the Fishermen?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like you said, I thought they started off pretty strong. It's a younger group, losing, two 100 point career scorers in Colby Jewell and Brett Cunningham. They're going to have some firepower to replace there, but they got off to that nice start, 3-1-1, like you mentioned. I thought they played pretty well in the Holiday Cape Ann Savings Bank tournament. Didn't win it, weren't able to defend their title, but picked up 3 points. They went to double overtime with Medfield there, which went down as a tie for the MIA purposes. They throttled Medford 6-0 and had a pretty nice performance a couple games ago against Winthrop, even though they lost it in the final minute there, letting up a goal with 45 seconds left, I think it was, in a tie game. But
Then they come out and they take on Triton, which they were hoping was kind of a bounce back opportunity for them, ride some of that momentum from the strong play against Winthrop. And they admittedly didn't play their best hockey. Lost that one 4-2. So it's three straight losses now for Gloucester. And like you mentioned, they got a big test coming up on Saturday against Marblehead, a real physical team that's playing good hockey that won um, the Cape Ann Savings Bank tournament, right? They ended up beating Medfield, Phil, in that.
No, no, they lost to Midfield. That's their only loss.
Oh, my mistake. So that's okay. So only loss, and obviously one of the best teams in the NEC still. And just speaking with head coach Derek Geary, obviously they got, like I mentioned, a lot of young guys. They're rotating in some freshmen, some sophomores. He's changed up the first line a couple times. I look at a guy like Cade Cooper who got off to a really good start, still leading the team in points, but hasn't been able to find the back of the net in recent games. Colby Warren's another guy that's played some pretty good hockey. Jackson Harnish, and then
Harnish is
Israel.
interesting because he's a freshman, Nick, but he's already got, I think, what, 7 points on the year, 7 points in 8 games or whatever.
That's right. Yeah,
Um,
not that big, but
no, no, but he's fast and I like what he does with the puck. He's good.
yeah,
He's got a nice future there.
absolutely. And
Albano scored the last 2 games too, right? I mean, he's providing a little bit of offense for them.
Albano did, and his younger brother is also playing some hockey, getting into the mix on defense too. Chase, I think it is. So both of those guys, those are two players that Derek Geary, the head coach, highlighted in recent games that have been, turning in some good minutes for the Fishermen. But
Triton
um,
has taken care of the Cape Ann League. I saw they beat Rockport last night too.
yeah, they crushed Rockport, and Rockport was down a bunch of guys. I think they had some illnesses going through
Yeah,
the team.
yeah.
They missed a lot of guys, but yeah. So I think Gloucester has the potential, the ability to kind of right the ship here, snap this losing streak. I don't know if it comes against Marblehead. That's going to be a good test for them, like I said. But even if they can come away with a tie or a one goal loss and feel good about their performance in that one moving forward, it could give them some momentum because they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot once again this year with the younger group. And then Rockport, another young team that's been decimated with injuries and illnesses in recent games, but they got Ryan Meany, who's off to a great start for them, and having the
Captain
luxury of
from
pulling
Ipswich. Yeah.
from Ipswich. I was going to say having the luxury of pulling from a couple different towns, and those kids seem to mesh well together. You got two good goalies in Luke Holmes and Cooper Miller, who've been splitting time in the net. So Rockport's another team that I think will be in the mix for a playoff seed. Whether or not they can finish above 500, that remains to be seen. But they're going to be in the mix, considering the division they're in. So that's pretty good. Look at where we're standing with the two Cape Ann teams, anyway.
Phil, tell me what you're expecting from the power rankings tomorrow. I feel like a lot of our boys' teams are kind of all over the place,
Yeah.
schedule wise and a lot of ups and downs, a lot of teams sort of hovering around that 500 mark and we really don't know where they're going to land until we see that first set of rankings. I mean, tell me like maybe give me like two teams that you think will be lower than we expect and then two teams that will be higher than we expect.
Okay. I'll do the higher than expect first. We've mentioned Marblehead already. They're off to a 7-1-1 start. They played 7 straight road games before they finally played at home against the PBD Saugus Swampscott team last Saturday. They beat Malden Catholic, which I know is not Division One anymore, but they're a Catholic Conference team, Division Two. They beat a real good Shawsheen team. They beat Medford twice, which again is Division One. I know they're not great. Um, I think, we'll see them in the top 5 or 6. I think we can say the same thing about Essex Tech. Essex Tech is off to a great start this year. They're now 6-1-1 after last night's win. They've got a couple Division One victories on their belt when they beat Wellesley and Falmouth down at the Kenny tournament in Falmouth over the Christmas break. They beat Winthrop. They beat Newburyport. Uh, They're playing very, very well. And both of those teams had, ironically, milestone milestones last night, Wednesday night. Essex Tech, Mark Leonard wins his 300th career game there. He's in his sixth season at Essex Tech, 72 wins now for him after picking up 228 wins during his time at PBD when he was there for 26 years. So congratulations to Lenny. In Marblehead, we saw their senior captain Kyle Hart hit his 100th career point. He got 2 goals and 2 assists to give him 100. And he is now the 17th player in Marblehead history to hit 100 points. That's pretty impressive. Two teams lower, I would say.
Right. So
Excuse me.
it's just interesting with Essex too. I mean, they were fifth last year, so I don't think, I kind of expect them to be up there. And Marblehead actually ended up sixth last year too, which is
They did.
surprising. The
Yeah.
start they had. So not as, obviously a Cinderella run, but maybe not as much as we expected. But certainly it feels like that Cape Ann League might be a tick ahead of the conference at this stage, based on some of these results and some of the crossover matchups that we've seen so far. So certainly feels like Essex is with the firepower they had coming back would have been ticketed for a top five position. I think they're getting better play, maybe defensively and in net in the early going than they expected, which is nice to see.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, new goaltender in Tegan Moreau, junior first year starter. His goals against is like 209. I think he's only given up 17 goals in those 8 games with one shutout. It is, they are scoring well. I think they have 29 goals so far. And, as we'd expect, Brady Leonard, the coach's son, captain, right up there, 10 goals, 18 points. You see a guy like Jaden Vargas, another captain, 4 goals, 4 points. A lot of balanced scoring. Ben Rehal's got 9 points. I think you have Brian DeLisio with 8 points. You get a kid like Anthony Vicente, 7 points. Teddy Sassoris, 7 points. There's a lot of balance there. Um, if we're looking at teams that you asked me for two teams that you thought would be lower than expected, um, well, I mean, certainly I would say we're used to seeing St. John's Prep number one almost every time we see one of these polls. I don't think they will start out number one. They're 4-3 right now. They have won back-to-back games after last night's shutout of Bishop Fian, but they lost to Pope Francis, which I would think would probably be the number one seed as of, in these initial power rankings. They lost to Reading. That was a bit of a surprise. Overtime loss there at home, and they lost at Hingham. Now, all of those teams are going to be highly rated. Will they be ranked ahead of the Prep? I don't know. I mean, the Preps played BC High, the Preps played Pope Francis, but they haven't really gotten into the meat of their schedule yet. The Catholic Conference, they'll start this weekend. Still, I would be shocked if they were number one seed. So by that logic, they'll be lower than we would think. The other one would probably be Masconomet. Been a tough start to the year for Masco. They're 1-5. I really don't think they're playing that badly. I mean, they've lost 3 1-goal games and 1 2-goal game. So their record might be a little bit deceiving, but I think we've talked about it on here before. A lot of new defensemen that are playing regular varsity time, 2 first-year goalies. They did put up 8 in a win against Beverly over the weekend, but then dropped the heartbreaker the other night to Winter. One turnover proved to be the deciding goal there. So they are probably not going to be as high as I would expect them to be later in the season.
It's interesting. I would imagine. See,
Excuse me.
I would almost think that the Prep is going to be higher than we expect, not based on last year, but based on the fact that they're 4-3. And they're probably still going to be
Well, yeah, they'll
five,
still
six,
be,
seven, eight. Which, when you look at that, I mean,
yeah.
they've lost. Like, because I think Hingham would be top three. I know they just played Arlington. I forget who won that game.
Arlington
You would
won two
assume
to one, I
BC would
think.
be higher, Zavarian. So, but you look at a team that's 4-3. I mean, I would be really surprised if they were still somewhere between 5 and 10.
Oh, they absolutely will be. Yeah, I mean, just based on the teams they play. I mean, they're no disrespect to anybody else, but they're not playing, Watertown. Yeah, their schedule alone will bump them up in the rankings. I just don't think it's, we used to they've been number one in the 3 years since they've had the power rankings. I bet they've been number one in those bi-weekly polls 90 to 95% of the time. I remember there was a stretch where Catholic Memorial was maybe like twice or three times, but I think it's been St. John's the rest of that time. And I don't think it's going to be that way tomorrow.
No, 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 certainly not. I wouldn't imagine. So where do you see teams that are sort of flirting around 500 but don't have a great schedule? You know, where do you see teams like Beverly and Danvers and the PBD Co-op ending up here? I mean, is this going to look like the basketball rankings where, hey, these teams have a pretty good record, but they're somewhere in the 20s anyways?
Yeah, probably. For Beverly, they need to find some consistency. They're 4-4 right now, and it's win one, lose one, win one, lose one. I can sit here and say, well, they're better than their record. Like, yeah, I do believe that they are. I think when they play well, they're a pretty good team, a pretty good Division II team, but they just haven't shown that consistency yet. They had a great win against Somerville last night, but the game before that, they got doubled up by Rockport and by Masconomet and gave up 8 goals. They lose a heartbreaker to Danvers in overtime, a game that they, probably controlled. They play well in a loss to Marblehead. No shame there, 3-1 with an empty netter. But then they go out and lose to Pentucket in overtime. So they need to start playing a little more consistently. I mean, their wins are two over Rockport, one over Amesbury, and one over Somerville. And like that's great, the wins count, but I don't think that's going to shoot them up the power standings. They need to, a win over Danvers this weekend would show them something, or a win over Winthrop would show, something in power rankings. Danvers, similar boat. It's a young team. Geez, sorry, I got this itch in my throat here. Excuse me. They've just got the one win, so they may not even be top 32 in Division III at this point. That overtime
Oh,
win,
wow,
like
I
I
didn't
said,
realize that.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, they're 1-5-1.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I
again,
have to
playing
apologize. I
much
thought they were a
better.
little closer to 500 than that.
No, we talk. I mean, they have three one-goal losses, one two-goal loss, and then a 4-1 loss last time out on New Year's Day against Stoneham. But by the time they play Beverly Saturday, they'll have had 10 days off. Maybe they've moved the lines around. Maybe some guys gotten healthy. Um, when I was at Danvers basketball the other night, I saw those guys working out in the school gym. Um, but yeah, I would not expect them to have a high ranking when that comes out. And the other team you asked me about, Willie, was who now?
I'm interested in the Peabody co-op
Oh yeah, yeah,
because,
yeah, yeah.
being in Division One, I think is certainly extraordinarily challenging for them. And, really, if they don't find their way into maybe a play-in game, which I don't think necessarily happens in hockey. I mean, they're probably gonna have their best season in 10 years and end up a sacrificial lamb. Like that's kind of an unfortunate it almost reminds me of lacrosse a little bit that way.
Yeah, I think for them to get into the playoffs, they're going to have to get 10 wins or 20 points or whatever I guess we don't even really use points anymore, do we, in this new system? Um,
500 gets you in. Yeah, I mean,
but yeah,
regardless.
okay, so 500, I guess it doesn't have to be 20. It could be, 6, 6, and 8 or whatever. Well, I guess that would
I
still
mean,
be
it's
20.
it's so. I mean, if the alignment is the same as last year, and I believe it is, there's only 40 teams, so there's only 8 that get cut. So I
Yeah.
mean, they really probably. I mean, there were a bunch of the last team in last year had 5 wins. Uh, the team seeded 35th was 2-18-1. So probably. I mean, 10 points does it. 20 points does it, but I would think like even 7, say 7, 8, and 4 or something like that might I mean just because of the sheer number of teams like that might get you in at 32, which again, like going to Pope Francis is no picnic. That certainly is not a fair fight, but that's where I think that whole power ranking thing and co-op thing is a little bit interesting. And I know in the next alignment they're slated to move back down to Division 2,
Correct.
which is certainly you can make the argument they belong in 3, but they certainly don't belong in 1. And I just find that to be kind of like a tough thing because they're probably going to get those wins. But and with the number of goals they're scoring too, that will certainly be a very good thing for their margin right, which will help that part of the ranking. And tell us a little bit about the column this week too. I know was focused on a really good goal scorer for them that sort of came back from the AAA junior ranks and has enjoyed high school hockey. Maybe like you can inspire some other junior players to come back and play high school hockey with your tales of this big time scorer.
Yeah, Nick Muse got 16 of his team's 33 goals. I mean, he's far and away the leader locally. I think the next closest, Brady Leonard, has 10. Yeah, Nick's a bona fide scorer. Got a nice shot, got good acceleration with the puck, moves well through the neutral zone, attacks the net, knows where to be. Um, has the talent to put the puck in the net, as obviously his 16 goals shows there. I think we're going to see a real test, though, as they start to get into more of their conference schedule, Willie. Beginning on Saturday, they're at Winthrop, then they have Danvers, and I believe it's Beverly, Gloucester, Masco, Marblehead again. So it's a pretty tough 6 game stretch for them. Um, they've done a nice job beating the teams they should beat, the Everetts, the Linds, schools like that. And they did beat Masco the first time around. So kudos there. But it's going to get more difficult. I think the defensive competition is going to get a little bit tighter, as we saw in their game against Marblehead on Saturday. It was a 3-1 game. Um, for PBD again, I think they're going to have to get those 10 wins or the equivalent thereof, the 20 points. I don't think power ratings wise with the schedule they have is going to earn them a top 32 spot in Division One. Um, and as you mentioned, it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Well, if you get in, that's awesome. But you're probably going to be the 33 seed or the 34 seed, and you're going to have to play a Pope Francis or a St. John's Prep or something like that. That really doesn't benefit either program. But you do want to have something for these kids to play for. And I think for a team like this, just getting into the playoffs will be a big thing.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Tell me a little bit about hoop. I mean, let's shift quickly to hoop. What do you guys have to say about the local hoop scene? What has opened your eyes thus far in the early going?
Nick?
Yeah, well, Phil, you were at Masco the other night. We talked a little bit about them. They're off to an awesome start. And I think I highlighted them, early on in the season saying they got some pretty good talent this year. But Phil, tell us a little bit about Masco because they're what, 6-1 now?
Yeah, 6-1. I was really impressed. Not only by their shooting ability, but their ability to attack the basket. And they have some big guys there,
Yeah.
like Jamison
Size is
Bella.
huge in these leagues. If you have some big guys, it makes a big difference.
It is, but you know what? The guy who impressed me the most was Jimmy Farrell, their guard. He's got a really nice shot from the outside, can score in transition, can pull up and shoot, can move around the perimeter and find his shot and hit it, but he's got no problem like exploiting matchups. If he's got a smaller guy on him, blowing by the guy, using his athletic ability to get up and put the ball off the glass or float it in from in front of the rim. He scored 31 the other night, on the night that I saw him. And yeah, they had a height advantage over Danvers, but I was really impressed by the way he played. And really, I thought the team rebounding was terrific from Masconomet.
Yeah.
Coach Jacob Morales had told me afterwards that he had felt they had gotten off to a lot of slow starts, even though they had a good record. They weren't the team coming out. I think he said throwing the first punch, and the day that I saw him, they threw quite a few punches right off the bat. They were diving on the floor for loose balls, things like that. So they were very impressive to me. They play Beverly next week, next Tuesday, and I think that should be a good game. It seems like if they aren't the two best teams in the conference, at least so far, they're right there. So that should be a good take. Um, Masco has the height advantage. Beverly to me is more, I don't know if I'd use the word scrappy, but they just seem to put it together. Jacob Class, excuse me, is a top scorer, but they have other guys around him, whether it's Will Ryan or Danny Pierce and some of these guys that can make things happen as well at both ends of the court. So that should be an interesting take and give us an idea of how the conference will play out. Don't rule out Marblehead, obviously. Don't rule out Salem. Um, but it
Now,
seems to
Peabody
me,
picked up a nice win over Marblehead, which was a little bit of a
I did see
surprise.
that. Yeah, yeah. And they rolled them pretty good, didn't they?
And that's a young Peabody team. I know, geez, when I started covering them, Thad Broten's son was in elementary school. Now he's a freshman playing for the team, right?
And he's
Freshman,
getting
I think
better every game, it looks like,
he's
point
putting up some,
wise and
some
the
good
numbers
numbers, and
he's playing, things like that.
yeah. So I think I agree. I think outside of Beverly and Masco at the top, I think the rest of the conferences, they can all beat each other on any given night. Even Gloucester is having a pretty solid
Yeah.
year. They're 4-3 right now. They beat Danvers. They beat Hamilton Wenham, who I thought has some pretty good talent. I think that's a team that's going to turn it around at some point. And they had a competitive game. Gloucester did with Salem. They had a competitive game with Masco, 8-point game where they had a lead, I think, in the second half. So Gloucester's a team that I think can win some games, and they're playing Beverly tonight. This podcast will come out right before that, so we'll see how that one shakes out. But I like Gloucester. I think they got some shooters. They got some athletes from the football team that are playing really good defense, doing the rebound and the little things for that team.
I was
Um,
impressed by Danvers too. I mean,
yeah, Danvers, they're
they
above
they fell
500.
behind Masco, and Masco was really trying to put its foot down on the accelerator. And Danvers, to its credit, I thought they hustled for the entire 32, even when, okay, we're down 25 in the fourth quarter, let's say. We're probably not winning. They were still doing everything. They were attacking the glass, they were driving the lane. And it was impressive to me that they were continuing to drive the lane against this, forest of Masconomet arms underneath. Like they weren't just settling for, your usual array of 35 three-pointers kind of thing. Like they were going after it and trying to find the best shots themselves and all. And
Yeah, they've been able to put up some points. I mean, that was a high scoring game, if I remember correctly, against
it
Masco.
was really high scoring.
So, and Danvers is above 500, looking to get back in the tournament. And yeah, shout out to Jabari Clark with that program. He's seems like they're trending in the right direction.
A team that we haven't had a chance to see, but I've been trying to keep track of a little bit is Fenwick. You get a read on them at all, Nick or Willie?
I think in terms of wins and losses, they're struggling a little bit, but obviously they made a good hire there with Chris Timpson coming back to his alma mater to coach them, and I think he's excited about what he can bring to the program and try and turn them back to their winning ways as well. They've had a couple down seasons in recent years after some really good seasons with Jason Romans and the like running the show, but. I don't think they really have one standout player. They're relying on a lot of different guys over there in Fenwick. And Willie, I don't know if you've heard from Chris recently, but um, has he mentioned anything about their play of late?
They're figuring it out. They're kind of it's a really different style than last year. It was very free flowing, and I think they want a little bit more control. And they're still trying to figure out how to do that, and they're trying to figure out how to make it work with a small lineup, and how to figure out what shots to take and what shots to pass up. And I get the sense they're playing a little tentative right now, and hopefully as they get used to what the system calls for and what the system's going to create, it'll become second nature, and they'll develop some confidence that way. But certainly the schedule does them no favors. They play some really tough teams. I mean, I look at that Fenwick Peabody game a week ago Monday as kind of a turning point for both teams because Peabody had lost I think three in a row and hadn't looked great going into that game. And I said to a couple of friends of mine like, geez, I think this is the year Fenwick really gets them. They're senior laden, they get the guards, and Peabody came out and kind of blew doors and took over the game, and they've been going great guns ever since. And so maybe the rematch is a chance for Fenwick to get going again. But that was a little bit surprising to me, that result. And the teams have kind of been heading in different directions since, but certainly plenty of talent there among the Fenwick guards. I mean, when I almost feel like when you're in a shooting drought, right? What do they say in the NBA? Keep shooting, right? And shoot your way out of it. Now, obviously, the quality of the shooters at a Division 3 or 4 high school versus the NBA is a little bit different, right? I mean,
Of course.
you want a professional to shoot their way out of it. So obviously, there's going to be some shots that you want to pass up. But I think Fenwick certainly is in a little bit of a batting slump right now, to use a baseball analogy, and I think they're not going to hit 210 for the entire season, right? They're going to find their average. And in order to get to that average, that means they're going to heat up and they're going to find themselves, hitting 440 for a good stretch. And when they do, they're going to be a dangerous team.
Yeah, I know they got some shooters, at least three or four guys that are, 10 threes or more now. So they can knock them down. And like you said, if they get hot, they can beat some teams. So yeah. And we should just mention Pingree. They're off to a pretty slow start for their standards. I think they were 1-6 last time I checked. But Jordan Maxon coming over from Salem isn't missing a beat with them. He's leading them in scoring, I think, close to 24 points per game now. So he's a player to watch over at Pingree. But that's a young team that graduated some real talent, and it's going to be hard pressed for them to compete for an EIL title this year. So, but keep an eye on
Yeah,
Jordan
we haven't
Maxon.
been hearing much from Pingree as far as reporting scores or whatnot, but I do know that Maxim went off for like 41 points in his season opener, I think, right?
Yeah, he's like I said, he hasn't missed a beat. He's a special player, and he's going to do good things for them. And I do know the we should mention the I talked to Steve Gibbs, the Pingree coach, a couple days ago. They are hosting. He's hosting a couple basketball games at the Garden this weekend, right? A
I
boys game
believe
and a
so,
girls game, a
yeah.
couple local teams.
Yeah, Marblehead
Um,
girls playing there, maybe.
Marblehead girls, I think, and Hamilton One and boys,
Yeah, that sounds
I
right.
believe. So yeah, look into that. It's always fun when the local teams get to play at the Garden. Good opportunity for those guys and girls.
Yeah, the Lawson games, exactly. The Lawson games.
Awesome, right?
What are we seeing in the girls? I think we kind of had Fenwick, ticketed as the best team around here. Now they've had a couple of tough losses. Malden Catholic, I think, and somebody down in the Revive tournament, maybe Walpole, something like that. So, but they get to test their mettle against Masconomet this week, which has been the top dog in the NEC. So.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting crossover game, but any surprises, anything on the girls scene that anybody has seen thus far?
I mean, I think you kind of mentioned the two teams that, you immediately think of in our area when it comes to the girls' basketball. Um, yeah, Fenwick's record might be surprising to those who don't follow it and all, but I mean, if you look at the teams they're playing and the roster that they have, I think they're probably right about where they should be. I mean, would Adam DeBadges and his team like to have, two more wins? Yeah, of course they would, but they're getting really good play. I mean, Caitlin Boyle, the junior captain, she's about what, 16 and a half points a game, 7+ rebounds a game. Celia Nelson, the other junior captain, right around 12 points a game, I think, 7 rebounds a game for her. She's also dishing out 6 assists, if I remember correctly. So they're gonna be fine. Real good test, as you said, Willie. It's a Sunday, right, against Masco, I want to say.
Yeah.
Um, And they've got all kinds of talent there. The Lalico sisters are both playing really well. I think one is averaging a little over 11 points, the other one 9. I want to say Sammy with the 11 and Angie with the 9. They're both among the top rebounders, about 9 rebounds a game. Ava Allen's been really steady for them, 9.5 points, hitting a bunch of 3-pointers. She's also leading the team in assists. Uh, Shea Vellers played very well for them as well. She gets after under the boards. Riley Bovardi, we know her from the state championship girls soccer team. She's kind of what would you say, Willie, like a defensive demon or just one of those glue guys, who can do a little bit of everything, whether it's dishing the ball off, whether it's making a big stop, whether it's coming up with a steal. If they need her to hit double digits and scoring for one game, she can do that. She's a pretty valuable player for them as well. So, Masconomet might have a little more um, depth and varsity experience, but this Fenwick team is so used to playing big time basketball games that I think this should make for a terrific game on Sunday afternoon.
I think we'd be remiss not to quickly mention the Swampscott boys and girls as well. I mean, as far as the scoring duo
Yeah.
goes, I'm not sure any school around here can match up with Connor Schiarello. He's got a couple of 30-point games, and then the freshman Anna Canders for the Big
Yeah.
Blue girls has a couple of 20-point games, really carrying the scoring load for the Big Blue. Hopefully, she sticks around long enough to make a long tournament run in a couple of years. But Swampscott boys too. being 5-1, started the year 5-0, had a tough loss to Lynn Classical, but in their division, that certainly is not going to hurt. A Division One or two GBL team played them pretty tight, so things are going well on that side of Humphrey Street as well.
And Connor's a guy that's kind of been working towards that. I've been watching him for a few years now, playing at the varsity level. He's a talented scorer, and I'm not sure if he's a junior or senior now, but clearly taking that leap and averaging over 20 points a game for them. So
He's got to be on a 1,000 point pace, I would think.
Yeah.
yeah, getting close. Yeah.
Willie, we should
Um,
mention too, I know we've talked earlier about how she missed the first few games with an injury, but Angie Joko is back and really playing well for Danvers. She's averaging a double-double with 14 points, 10 rebounds. Such an athletic presence in the middle of the paint for Danvers, but she can take defenders outside and can shots from outside the perimeter there, and a terrific defensive player. And her health, or back to health, I should say, is really going to help Danvers in its quest to have a strong second half of the season.
Yeah, difference maker to be sure.
We should ask
and
you, since you are the expert on the topic, what's going on girls hockey? I mean, great win for Peabody over Winthrop, and another one of their seems like patented tight matchups. And we've seen Beverly now win two in a row after dropping their first five games.
Willie, I'll let you take that, but I just wanted to sneak in a Gloucester girls basketball note. Jordan Purdue Del Torchio did score 41 points in a recent win over Salem, believed to be a program record for them. She had 35 going into the fourth. They were blowing Salem out, but coach noticed how many points she had. He said, let's see if she can get 40. So she did get the quick 6 points in the fourth. They pulled her. And yeah, she's been playing great for them, Jordan. She's a junior. And that's a team they have 7 or 8 girls on their varsity roster, only one senior in Ty Amano, who's having a terrific year. And they're going to be flirting with a playoff spot. I don't think they've qualified for the state tournament since 2013. So that would be big to do for them if they can get into the playoffs this year. And with Mano leading the way as a senior captain and Jordan
Good,
putting up
pretty
the
good.
numbers she does with no
Jordan.
threes, mind you. She did the 41-point game with no threes,
Wow.
all layups and free throws. So she's a force in the paint, and Gloucester's a team to definitely keep an eye on because they're going to be fighting for that elusive playoff berth.
Yeah, did you say they only have seven varsity players?
I think it might be 8 on the varsity roster, but he really only
Wow.
plays 7 girls. Like I said, one senior. They got some freshmen in the mix. A senior, a junior, and 3 sophomores, I think, or 2 sophomores and a freshman in the starting lineup. So numbers are not high, but they're making the most of it. I think they got 3 wins right now, 3-5. And they play Beverly tomorrow night, which is a game that I'll be at, and I think that'll be a good test for him.
Impressive.
So yeah, jump to the hockey. I just wanted to throw that in there. She deserves a lot of credit for a 40-point game. You don't see that too often on the girls' side.
Oh, no question. No question. Yeah, girls hockey, only 6 teams, seven with Gloucester, which is, playing some pretty good hockey. They'll be in the mix in Division Two for sure. I think Gloucester a little bit better than we expected. Getting a couple kids from Manchester certainly helped, and then, getting some kids back from injury. I mean, so they got good defense. They're pretty good up there. Peabody, we'll see. I could see them being power ranked anywhere between 2 and 12. I mean, who knows? That's
That
the
low, you
question.
think?
Well, I mean, because the schedule is I mean, they bumped up the schedule, but then some of the teams that they've played, have lost. I mean, they tie St. Mary's, and St. Mary's is like 2-5-1 or something. I know Falmouth already has more losses than they had all last year. Woburn is out to a great start, 5-2, so that will help. But yeah, you just never know how these things are gonna shake
Right.
out this early in the year. You know, you just don't know. Like maybe it's going to be all MVC teams in the top 10. Maybe it's going to be all Middlesex. Yeah, you just have no idea. I before you see it for the very first time, I feel like so I think it's hard to really get a read on how these new schedules are going to affect the power rankings, until we see it. That sort of is my thought as far as the power rankings go, but as far as the play goes, I mean they certainly are continuing to develop. I mean, the defense is good. The timely scoring could be a little bit better, but isn't that the story of hockey at every level, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
pretty
just
much.
no hockey coach that wouldn't tell you they wouldn't want more timely scoring. I think, Beverly is getting some great scoring right now, especially for Meredith Johnson. I mean, 5 goals in the last 2 games, a hat trick last night. She's really carrying her team right now to 2 wins, and they certainly needed it. But, again, I mean, Division 2 girls hockey, um, there's there's 51 teams, so you got to be a little bit better in Division 2 than Division 1 to get in. So you do have to do a little bit of damage there to get in. Although it looks like I'm looking at the power rankings from 2 years ago, not last year. So anyway, the point is you can get yourself in there. You don't have to be perfect.
Right.
It's like you can, yeah. Last year only 41 teams. So you only got to, it's sort of like when you're running from a bear, you don't have to beat the bear. You only have to beat the next last guy in line, right? Like you only got to beat 9 teams to get into this thing. You don't have so to think that they're 0-6 and it's all over. It certainly is not all over. I sort of had that feeling going into the game against Gloucester last week, and they've proven me to be kind of proficient there with 2 in a row. Now they face a Masco team on Saturday that's lost 3 in a row. They need to get a win. But if you're Beverly, you say, this team might be ripe for the pickings. Certainly going to have to play really good defense on Maddie Kenny. She's having a heck of a season for Masco. She's already up to 9 goals and 4 assists for 13 points, which is more than she had all last season. So that's definitely something to watch there as well. Masco only missed the state tournament by 2 spots last year. So they know what it takes, to beat those Bears and get into that top 32 spot is a big goal for them. So those two teams, I believe, are playing each other. I think twice in either one week or 2 weeks. There's a couple of successive Saturdays there. So those two games will be very big swing games to see if Beverly and Masco can get into that top 32. If either of those teams is able to grab 4 points out of those games, they're going to be going, and the team that gives up the points is going to be in some trouble.
You're on mute, Phil.
So why don't we wrap up with one of our blind rankings? You got one there for us, Willie, that we can
Yeah,
me and Nick
yeah.
can
Let's
spin
go.
our heads
So
around?
I'm going to give you from 1 to 5. One would be your top choice. Now these are going to be people with North Shore ties that could be the Patriots' next head coach.
Oh,
And
I like
some of
this.
them are perhaps realistic. Some of them are perhaps not. All right. And so some of them might actually go for the job. Some of them, are just kind of funny, like, little jokey things.
Like Mark Wahlberg type, are you saying?
Yeah, I would see, yeah, if I like, if I was to throw out, like, the late Stan Bondalevich, for instance, would not be in the mix,
Okay.
people like
All right,
this.
but North Shore ties that we would want to see be the next Patriots coach 1 to 5. Okay.
Well, maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. We'll
Okay.
see.
All right, let's
All
have
right.
it.
So the first name out of the chute is going to be a former Salem News Coach of the Year, who was greeted this past weekend by a rousing ovation at an NFL stadium
Yeah.
down in Baltimore. It is one Mike Flynn.
I'm gonna put
I always
Flinny
like
at
Mike Flynn.
2.
He did a great job at Pingree. He knows his stuff. Obviously had a lot of success in his playing days. Man, head coach. It's tough because I don't know what other names you're going to pull out the hat. I'm going to put him at number two.
Yeah, I'm putting him at 2 too, although I think he's gonna have a new head coaching job in the not so near future for one of our local football teams that might have a vacancy. That would be my guess.
Oh.
But he knows the game. He's personable. He's tough when he has to be. Um, knows how to get results. Certainly has a bona fide NFL pedigree. So give me Mike at number 2.
All right. All right. I don't mind this. I don't mind this at all. All right, my second name here is one Peter Junta.
Okay. Um, I'm going to say four, and this is certainly no disrespect to Peter, the Salem native, longtime defensive NFL coach. But I'm guessing he would not want to be a head coach, certainly at this point in his life, directing a train that is, if it is not off the tracks already, is certainly headed for it. Um, I think that's unfair to Peter. Why take over a reclamation project and set yourself up for this kind of scrutiny after all that he's done as an NFL coach? Out of respect to him, I will put him at four so that he doesn't have to be privy to this nonsense that's going on.
I think four is the right spot. I also had no idea that he was from Salem, so that's news to me, but that's pretty cool. And he's been doing this a long time. I don't know if he would jump into the head coaching duties at this point in his career. He's still with the Saints, right?
Peter?
He is, yep, still with the
Yeah,
Saints. That is
Yeah.
correct. Nick, where did you put Flynn anyway?
I put him at two.
All right, so we got two twos and two fours here.
Yeah,
correct.
same so far.
All right, you guys are not big fans of the even numbers, I guess.
The odd numbers.
Odd numbers, right? That's what I tried to say. Anyway, so our next candidate is from Marblehead. He is the head coach of the Kent School and spent some time with the Cincinnati Bengals in the league, coaching the offensive line. It's Ben Martin, prep guy.
Ah, I wrote a story on Ben a couple years back. Good guy. Um, you know, pretty good resume himself. Younger guy, if I remember right. He's not he could be in the middle of his coaching career, so to speak. Um, where would we? He's more of a line guy. I don't know who else you're going to go. So let me put Benjamin at number one.
All right, this is what happens. You return Nick's call and you go number one.
That's it, baby.
Yeah. I'm gonna do Ben a favor and I'm gonna put him at number five.
Oof.
Um, I think,
Yeah,
well, I say this for one reason. For the Patriots job, the fan base wants a name, somebody with experience, not only at the NFL level, but head coaching experience, but somebody that they can glean onto. Um, I mean, I think we know this is Mike Vrabel's job. They're going through the dog and pony show that they have to, but he's a name that Patriots fans recognize. Poor Ben would be like, who among most Patriot fans? And he wouldn't stand a chance before he even coached his first practice with the fan base because they'd say, you went from Gerard to a guy with X amount of experience. Okay, he's local, he coaches at a prep school, he spent some time in Cincinnati, but we're going to take him on as our head coach. I wouldn't do that to poor Ben. I'm going to put him at five again, completely out of respect for him. So Peter and Ben, 4-5, because I don't want them to be eviscerated by the vicious fan base that is out for blood if they don't get what they want here in this next hire.
yeah. I guess I looked at it differently in terms of just
As is your prerogative, Nicholas.
yeah. But anyway, we get two names left, so I'm curious.
No
Okay.
nonsense guy. No nonsense guy. Let's let's stay let's stay at St. John's Prep and let's go with Chelsea's own Brian Kelly. Things not going great at LSU. Could he come back north and return to the Great North and save the Patriots? Brian Kelly.
He's going in my number five. Uh, nothing personal to the guy, but I just don't think he'd be the right man for the job. I know he's had some success at the college level and whatnot, but uh, didn't do too well in the NFL, if I remember correctly. And I think he would have a short leash, and fans would be quick to to point the finger at him, should he be not having moving the team in the right direction. So give me Brian Kelly at number five.
Does Brian have any head coaching experience at the NFL level? I
Didn't
thought he
he?
was like,
I think
obviously LSU, Notre Dame, was Cincinnati before that, and I think he did like what, Grand Valley State and
I thought
Central.
he was with the Eagles at one point.
Nick might be thinking of Chip Kelly.
Yes, I think he is. Yes.
Okay, I think I was.
Yeah, Brian has looks like always been in college.
Always
That's
been in
what I
college.
kind of thought. Yeah.
Okay, well,
With
still
no
got my
idea
number
who you're
five.
putting at number one, the
Never had a
last
losing
pick.
record anywhere he's been, including Central Michigan Chippewas. So
You
there is that.
say again, Willie, what?
Brian Kelly has never had a losing record anywhere he has been, including the Central Michigan Chippewas. For his tenure, I should say, not for one season, but combined.
Okay. Um, Not knowing who you're going to put last, I'll put him at three. Again, it's a name I think people would know, but they wouldn't necessarily be pleased with. Um, because he hasn't done it at the NFL level. I think that'd be a big ask. And as we've seen, it doesn't always work out. Guy who's a big time college coach becoming an NFL head coach, it didn't work out for Nick Saban, didn't work out for Steve Spurrier. You can go on and on and on. So I'll put Brian at three.
All right, last guy comes from Salem. We've seen some people move in the NFL and become successful head coaches, like straight from the assistant ranks. Your John Harbaughs and your Sean McVays, people that aren't necessarily coordinators first. So this will be Salem's very own. He has some head coaching experience at the college level. The run game specialist of the Browns, Nick Charlton.
Yeah. Give me Nick at number one. Sure. Why not? Give him the chance here. I think the Browns connection might hurt him, considering that the most
You got
recent
Van Pelt.
season, yeah, would not earn him any favors from the fan base based on his Browns association. But sure, Nick. I mean, great football mind, as you said. Um, I mean, we need some offense. If he's a run specialist, but we can throw the ball a little bit. I can go Nick with number one. That's a good pick.
Never heard of the man, so I think three is probably the right spot for him. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll throw him right in the middle. Seems like a good man and has had some good success. So yeah, I'll go Charlton right in the middle there.
Willie, will you go over the list again?
So at number one, Phil has Nick Charlton. Number two, Mike Flynn. Number three, Brian Kelly. Number four, Peter Junta. Number five, Ben Martin. Nick has number one, Ben Martin. Number two, Mike Flynn. Number three, Nick Charlton. Number four, Peter Junta. Number five, Brian Kelly. And just to show the North Shore connections, there's a few more. I could have thrown Bill O'Brien at you, prep guy with Patriots connections.
Kind of
I
thought
could
he
have
was going to
thrown
be the last guy.
I could have thrown Brian St. Pierre at you. NFL quarterback, certainly not always going from high school to NFL head coach, but as an NFL quarterback, with experience in the league. I mean, we just saw Teddy Bridgewater return to the Lions after coaching in high school, so that's an option. I could have thrown Paul McGonigal of Endicott College at you. I
Yeah.
think he's just as good as anybody on any of these lists, to be quite honest with you. And then there's a few people off of his coaching tree and off of the coaching tree of Bob Chesney, who's now at say it James Madison, which is sort of like North Shore adjacent because of his connection to Paul and to Endicott. So I think that's sort of an interesting one as well too. So those would be kind of my top three that I didn't mention. I mean, was there anybody else that you guys thought that I might throw out there that I'm forgetting?
I thought you might throw out Sean Stellato, to be honest with you.
No, I'm honest to God. I mean, it's a good part, as good as
It's a
anybody else.
name. It's a
Yeah, so
name.
that's we almost had five extras then.
Yeah.
uh, I'm trying to think. There's got to be more college people out there that I'm sort of forgetting about.
Uh,
Nonetheless,
College coaches.
it's hard to keep track of everybody. I
It
mean,
is hard to keep track of everybody. Wow. Well,
um,
I mean, like
nonetheless,
the great Dick Farley, from Danvers was at Williams all those years,
yeah,
former
one of
NFL
the great
player with
college
the
coaches of all
Chargers.
time.
Um, Trying to think who else would be in that mix. Um, we have some kind of connection with Syracuse. I mean, obviously Rob Conrad went there, but he doesn't coach. Um,
And just, obviously trying to be somewhat realistic. I mean, we could start throwing out, Mike Giotti, Jim Rudloff would,
yeah,
Yeah,
these
yeah.
guys
I thought
might,
you might do that.
honest to God, some of these guys might have been better play callers than what the Patriots have been trotting out there in recent years. But,
yeah,
I tried to keep it somewhat realistic.
yeah. No, that's those are good. Those are good. I think, you know.
So another fun day here on the program. Hopefully, send us suggestions if you have topics you'd like us to cover
Yeah.
or line ranking ideas. But other than that, we'll talk to you guys all next week.
All right, guys. Take care. For Matt Williams, Nick Giannino, I'm Phil Stacy. Salem News and Gloucester Times Sports Podcast. We'll see you at the gym, the rink, wherever else.